The forest that surrounded our home since our childhood always felt like another world, one filled with secrets and the promise of adventure. Me, John, and my friends Mazen and Samir spent our days exploring its edges, building forts, and playing until sunset. But there was one spot we always avoided, a place even our parents warned us about: the old cabin at the heart of the woods. The cabin wasn't just a rundown building, it radiated a negative energy. A heavy silence wrapped around it, so thick that even birds avoided flying over its slanted roof. Its dust-covered windows looked like blind eyes staring into nothing, and the rotting wooden door groaned with every breeze as if begging for help or giving a warning. That summer day, when the heat weighed heavily over the town, we decided to be brave. We were 17 and felt that our fear of the forest cabin was a leftover from childhood. Enough. Today we find out its secret, Mazen said, eyeing me with challenge. Samir, the cautious one, shook his head. I heard my dad say that people went inside and never came back the same. We all laughed, but it was forced laughter, hiding the tremble in our fingers. We snuck out of my parents' house at noon when everyone was napping. Though the sun was bright, its light dimmed as we ventured deeper into the woods. Familiar sounds, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, began to fade, replaced by an oppressive silence that screamed in our ears. After 20 minutes of walking, we saw it. The cabin was even more terrifying than we imagined. The wood was black and rotten, and the air was thick with the smell of mold. Strange markings were carved into the door, faint symbols that looked like something from dark magic. When I placed my hand on the cold handle, a pulse of fear shot through me, an inner voice screaming, "Run!" But it was too late. I pushed the door, and it opened with a disturbing creak, like a trapped scream. We stepped into a single large room. Dust floated in the weak beams of sunlight squeezing through the dirty windows. The furniture was overturned and broken, and shattered dishes were scattered on the table, as if the occupants had fled in the middle of a meal. But what froze my blood was the wall. The wall behind the fireplace was smeared with dark brown stains. Stains I instinctively knew were old blood. Rusty chains were fixed into the wall, one still holding what looked like a fragment of a human bone. "Oh God," Samir whispered, his face pale. "What is this place?" We moved cautiously. Mazen picked up an old notebook from the floor, its leather cover thick with dust. He opened it, flipping through its yellowed pages. Suddenly, an old photograph fell out. He lifted it. It was a picture of a family, a father, mother, and 2 young children. But their faces had been violently crossed out with black ink, except for the father's eyes. His eyes were untouched, staring directly at the camera, but they were empty, like the dead eyes of a fish. I turned the photo over and read, "The Howard family, 1972. 1972. That meant the picture was over 50 years old. I tried to recall any story about a family by that name. Nothing. "There's a basement," Samir said suddenly, pointing to a hidden metal door near the fireplace, half concealed behind a broken cabinet. The door was cold metal, with a handle shaped like an inverted cross. A shiver crawled down my spine. An inverted cross? Why? We opened the door, revealing stone steps leading downward. A rotten, foul smell rose up, a smell of death and despair. Mazen pulled out a flashlight and pointed it ahead. We descended slowly, the steps wet and slippery. The darkness swallowed the beam of the flashlight. At the bottom was a small cellar, more like a dungeon or a torture chamber. In the corner stood small rusty cages big enough to imprison a child. Hanging from the walls were horrifying tools: scythes, hooks, knives of various sizes stained with rust. But the most terrifying of all was the stone altar in the center of the room. The altar was blackened with ancient blood. On it lay a straw doll, stabbed with long nails and wrapped in black thread. Around it were cut-out newspaper photos of missing children. "This is a place for satanic rituals," Samir said, trembling. "They sacrificed people here." At that moment, we heard a sound. Heavy footsteps descending the stone stairs behind us. "Tok, tok, tok." The flashlight went out. Mazen screamed and dropped it. It shattered on the ground. The darkness was absolute. I couldn't see my own hand. The footsteps stopped. "Mazen, Samir," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm here," Samir said, close enough for me to grab his shaking arm. "Where's Mazen?" I asked. He didn't answer. He was staring at something behind me, eyes wide with terror. I turned slowly. At the top of the stairs, in the open basement doorway, stood a silhouette. A tall man, unnaturally thin. I couldn't see his features, but I felt his hungry gaze. Then we heard a harsh, rustling sound, like someone whispering in an unknown language. "You have returned. At last." "Run!" Mazen screamed from somewhere in the darkness. We bolted. We climbed the steps in blind panic, pushing and tripping over each other. My heart hammered wildly. At the top, I turned back briefly. 2 glowing yellow eyes stared at us from the darkness. We slammed the metal door shut and pressed our bodies against it. Heavy footsteps approached from the other side, followed by violent banging. "We need to get out of here," Samir shouted. We raced to the main door of the cabin, but it was locked. I was certain we had left it open. "No!" Mazen yelled as he struggled with it. Something held it shut. The pounding on the basement door grew louder, the metal bending. I looked around desperately. The windows. They were boarded shut, but one had broken slats. "There!" I pointed. We ran to it. I grabbed a broken chair and smashed the remaining boards. The rotten wood gave way. Samir climbed out first, then Mazen. As I was about to jump out, I looked back. The basement door had burst open, and the man, the thing, stood there. He was no longer a shadow. In the faint light, I saw his true form, unbearably tall and skeletal, his skin pale and melting like wax. He wore an old tattered suit, but his face, he had no eyes, just black pits, and from his open mouth came that harsh whisper, "Don't leave me, John. I'm lonely." I jumped out the window, feeling a cold hand brush my shoulder. A burning touch. I hit the ground, and we fled. We ran through the forest, branches whipping our faces, lungs burning. We didn't feel exhaustion, only pure terror. We didn't stop until we reached the edge of the woods, the town's houses appearing below. We stood there panting, staring at each other. Pale, clothes torn, eyes filled with shock. On my shoulder, where that hand had touched me, was a dark bruise shaped like a thin hand. We returned home in silence. No one believed our story of a demon in the woods. They thought we were inventing trouble. But we knew the truth. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a faint whisper outside my window. "John, come back to me." I shut my eyes tightly and hid under the pillow. The following days were a nightmare. We saw shadowy figures at the edge of our vision, heard whispers when alone. Mazen became withdrawn. Samir woke up screaming at night. I felt a cold presence following me, even in the heat of summer. We decided we had to end this. We searched archives, old newspapers, the internet. And finally we found it. The story of the Howard family. They moved to town in the early 70s. The father, Robert Howard, was a strange butcher. Pets began to disappear, then homeless people. No evidence, no arrests. In winter of 1972, the entire family vanished. Neighbors found the cabin empty, except for blood everywhere. The case was closed as murder-suicide, but the bodies were never found. But there was more. A local legend claimed that Robert Howard belonged to a satanic cult and performed rituals to restore his youth using innocent souls. When he sensed danger, he sacrificed his own family to gain immortality, but the summoned spirit possessed him, turning him into an immortal creature doomed to eternal hunger and isolation. The cabin was not just a crime scene. It was his prison, his trap. A week after our visit, the neighbor's small dog vanished. 2 days later, a child disappeared from his front yard. The police searched everywhere. But we knew. We knew exactly where to look. We felt responsible. We had to act. The police wouldn't believe us, not after before. We had to face the creature ourselves. We gathered everything we could. Salt, set to repel evil. Crosses, 2 strong flashlights. On a moonlit night, we returned to the cabin. It was waiting. The door stood wide open, a dark mouth ready to swallow us. We entered, not with curiosity this time, but with determination. Everything was as we left it, but the smell of death was stronger. "Howard," I shouted, voice trembling but loud. "Show yourself." The whispering began in the corners, turning into a muffled, insane laugh. "You returned. Did you bring me new friends?" He appeared from the darkness, not from the basement, but from a corner of the room. In the pale moonlight, he looked even more horrific. His body moved unnaturally, as if his bones bent in impossible ways. "We won't let you hurt anyone else," Samir said, trying to sound brave. The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Children, you have no idea who you're dealing with." Mazen grabbed the bag of salt and threw some at the creature. Howard shrieked and staggered backward, black smoke rising from where the salt touched him. "You dare harm me in my own home," he roared. The lights went out. Fast footsteps circled around us. A cold hand wrapped around my throat, suffocating me with the smell of rot. "The crosses!" I cried. Samir pulled out a cross and raised it. Howard screamed again and recoiled, the cross burning his waxy flesh. We ran to the altar. We had to destroy the source of his power. "The doll," Mazen said. "We need to burn it." I grabbed the straw doll covered in nails. It was unnaturally cold, pulsing with wicked energy. Howard realized what we were doing. He roared, a sound filled with rage and fear. "No, it's my power!" He lunged at us, fast and terrifying. He grabbed Samir and hurled him across the room. Then he seized Mazen, lifting him off the ground. "Mazen!" I screamed. Mazen looked at me, terror in his eyes, then at the doll in my hand. I understood. I pulled a lighter from my pocket. My hands shook violently. "Put it down, or I'll kill him," Howard hissed, face inches from Mazen's. Mazen shook his head. "No." I lit the flame. The moment fire touched the doll, Howard let out a monstrous scream, neither human nor animal. He dropped Mazen and collapsed, his body twisting and deforming. I threw the burning doll onto the altar. Flames spread quickly. "Samir, Mazen, we need to go," I yelled. I pulled the half-conscious Samir toward the door. This time, the door opened easily. I turned for one last look. Howard was burning, his wax-like body melting, but he was laughing, an insane, agonizing laugh. "You cannot kill me. I am immortality. I'll return. I'll find you." We ran from the cabin as the fire spread. We stood at the forest edge, watching the cabin burn, flames reaching the sky, black smoke curling into a sinister cloud. The forest slowly came back to life. For the first time in years, birds chirped near the cabin. But we knew it wasn't over. We returned home trying to resume normal life, but something in us had changed forever. We were no longer the reckless teens who entered out of curiosity. We were men who knew true evil and knew some secrets should remain buried. On stormy nights, when branches hit my window, I jolt awake, certain I hear a faint whisper. "John, I haven't forgotten you." And sometimes, in my dreams, I see him standing in my room's corner, burning, but not dying. His black eye sockets fixed on me, whispering that our reunion is only a matter of time. The cabin burned. But the curse lives on. And I know, deep down, that those empty black eyes are waiting in the dark, patient, watching, knowing that the fear they planted in us will make us helpless when they decide to return.